I am Charlotte Taft. I'm the Senior Director of BI at Callahan and Associates, and I work with a group of people who have raised their hand to say they want to either present or help decide content for the credit union Tableau group that is of interest to everybody, regardless of your technology, or sometimes with very specific Tableau content. A couple just admin logistics things. We are recording this, and we will send out both the deck and the recording likely tomorrow. If you are not already on the email list, you will get the recording after the fact through your registration. But if you want to make sure you get future invitations, the the link is on this screen and elsewhere in this deck. And I will make sure you get that. If you've got questions for Eduardo once he starts going, or already, there is a Q&A box on the Zoom control. Please put them there. And if you have any issues, that kind of thing, or just want to introduce yourself, go ahead and use the chat function where you can choose who sees that. And without further ado, I think we can jump in. I'm just going to give a couple of quick introduction and community updates so we know what's kind of going on, a little bit of extra info, and then I will hand over to Eduardo, who is our guest speaker for today, and very excited for his presentation. Quick couple notes. I did this for a previous group meeting and people liked it, or so I was told by a couple people. And so I took the titles of people who registered, very light cleanup, and made ourselves a word cloud. I do think this represents pretty well just how diverse a group of people are involved in analytics, either as stakeholders, as actual practitioners, or our support and really essential partners. It's probably the combination is most often a combination of technology, dedicated or embedded analytics, and the finance group, but it is by no means limited to that, as we do see lots of people from lending, from marketing, from even HR. And I think that it's been so wonderful to see everyone join in and get value from this. So I hope that if you have questions or suggestions for future topics, or would definitely like to present, please reach out to me. We would not be more delighted than to figure out how to get even more good content to this group. I just wanted a couple updates to make sure people knew what was going on. Tableau's Financial Services Group is running a summer series out of their, quote, Financial Services and Insurance Vault this summer. They've had, gosh, it's almost 5 webinars a week, which are also available on demand after the fact. The link is here in the slide. And the ones that are coming up in August, I just highlighted a few, including introduction to Tableau Desktop, using bank loan data. And they actually have follow-ups to that, so they keep moving with the type of analysis. Obviously, BANK can sometimes be a dirty word, but it might have a lending similarity and use to groups in our sphere. Some COVID-19 analytics, introduction to Tableau prep and server management, data management. So I'm sure that's some really valuable content if you have time, either live or on demand. And I too try to avoid talking Callahan things, but I did notice on this list, we do have a fair number of Callahan users, both of creditunions.com and our products. So I'm giving a very quick plug. One thing we hear about a lot of the time here is non-interest income data. Why can't the 5300 report tell us more? And so we've come up with a collaborative tool that allows people to upload their own much more granular data and be able to visualize it in our peer-to-peer software and track historical trends, do the benchmarking that is really valuable in terms of comparative analysis, as well as being able to reach out to peers in the industry who might be having similar or different trends and factors involved. There's information on this slide if you do want to participate. And I thought I'd give a little Tableau version here, which was just a very quick, down and dirty, not my highest viz work, using a stacked bar and the little viz in tooltip. So imagine here for CU8, this is anonymized but real data for a breakdown of fee income composition, which compares it across these 10 credit unions. Self-plug over with. I do just want to say that if you're interested in speaking, hosting, planning, or just want to say, I really, really need to hear about how to make a marketing dashboard, let me know. We love suggestions, and it's really what fuels what we actually end up presenting here. One quick update. We've had a lot of people raise their hand and say they'd love to be more involved with planning future calls and webinars. As such, we've decided to have one group call here because one thing we found is that there's a really wide range of technology used. I am a Tableau user and lover at heart, but we have a lot of users of Tableau as well as Power BI, Spotfire, and various things. So we are going to host a leadership call on the 12th of August to talk about ways we can really make sure we're prioritizing the right topics and the right formats for people. And then we're going to have a couple sub calls because we do want to make sure that people who have their specific software, and these do seem to be the leaders in terms of headcount, so we can talk about some specific ways we want to integrate more technical and new feature learnings as well for the industry group here, which we're calling the CU Analytics community. So if you are interested in joining those, either email me, or if you're not registered and haven't put your hand up, you can register for the email list, and it has a tick box for saying you'd like to be part of one of the leadership groups. So please go ahead and do that if you'd like. Okay, so without further ado, today's speaker is Eduardo Santos, coming out of United Federal Credit Union in St. Joseph, Michigan. Here for your takeaway slide value, rather than on screen probably with a lot of numbers in small font and in a table. We just compared the primary peer groups with United's performance. They are a credit union out of Michigan who just shy of the $3 billion mark. This is our Q1 data. I did not check the new almost ready next quarter data, but I think we can probably expect them to start to tip over into the $3 billion or more mark. Eduardo is Vice President of Enterprise Analytics, and today he's going to take us through a lot of different aspects of the journey he's had at United over the last 2 years. And I don't want to put words in his mouth, but in the discussions I've had with him, he's taken a very forward-looking approach to how United has created a next-generation analytics practice. It's involved data management. Where does data science fit in? And then where does the actual visual analytics component work too, as well as partnerships with different business units, how you think about a data culture, and the all-important technology partnership. So Eduardo, you can go ahead and grab the screen share, but thank you so much for joining us today, for agreeing to present, and I will cede to you.
All right, perfect. Hold on, because I think I need to get the second screen. So, give me a second here. All right, you guys can see my screen?
Sure can.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Charlotte. And I want to also say thank you to Tableau and to Callahan for having me here today. And thank you all for attending. It's not surprised that artificial intelligence is no longer a term reserved for academia and science fiction. This is becoming an ordinary topic in everybody's lives. AI is being used to make pizza. Autonomous cars are delivering pizza. Smart assistants, vacuum robots, recommendation engines, and so much more. I was surprised when I was driving in Chicago right before the pandemic started and seeing billboards advertising data companies for the general public and not just for a targeted audience. These are just a few demonstrations of how much data is fueling businesses in all industries and, quite frankly, in all our lives as well. The point here is that our members are interacting more with data every day. They're being trained by tech giants, and we need to do what it takes to stay relevant to them. Today's talk is about United Federal Credit Union's data and analytics journey and how we significantly improved our analytics maturity in a fairly short period of time. But most importantly, why this matters. Although this is our story, I hope you can find something useful for your organization, since as credit unions, we all face similar challenges, but the circumstances I know might be different. A little spoiler alert here, this story doesn't have a happy end, simply because there is no end to it. Challenges will thankfully just keep coming, right? And also, since this is a Tableau Users Group, I've selected a few of our dashboards that during this presentation I will be sharing with you. a little bit more about United. So we are located in Southwest Michigan in a town called St. Joseph. This credit union was originally founded in the 1930s to what would later become Whirlpool Employee Federal Credit Union. After mergers and acquisitions, it became United Federal Credit Union. We offer consumer and business products for approximately 180,000 primary members. I have the updated numbers here, Charlotte, so we're a little bit over $3 billion in assets. 700 employees. We operate in 6 states with 37 branches. And one cool thing to share is that we're finalizing the remodeling of what's going to be our new and modern headquarters, which was actually a building that previously was owned by Whirlpool. Now, I started at United about 2 years ago, actually 2 years ago next week. And my first day at work, my very first meeting early in the morning was with our CEO. And during this lively conversation I had with him, he was sharing with me his vision for the organization as well as his vision for data and analytics in the future of this organization. And during that conversation, it was clear to me that we were ready to start moving towards a data-focused direction. But before I started diving into projects and data, I wanted to reflect on what was the current scenario and the driving forces behind the organization's decision to start focusing on data and analytics. And overall, I think the panorama for credit unions is not very appealing. In a little more than 200 years, our industry has shown modest progress compared to other industries such as medical or transportation. The new kids on the block are called fintechs, and a lot of people think they're cool. On the other hand, some of our not so old friends such as Apple, Facebook, and Google want to come play in our backyard. Not only that, but we already had more than 11,000 financial institutions in the United States to compete against. And finally, the realization that the activity that we develop is essential, but we are not. So what's left for credit unions? Well, that's our playing field. Although our playing field might be limited, we still have some distinguishing features and unique selling points that appeal to a large audience. But it's a fierce competition, we all know that. And as I said before, we need to do what it takes to stay relevant to our members. Now, if this is a view of the external environment, I also took some time to look at our internal situation. This study shows how organizations were using analytics about 2 years ago. A variant of other analytics maturity models you might have already seen. Usually these models have 5 stages that go from descriptive analytics all the way up to prescriptive analytics. At that time at United, we were primarily doing descriptive analytics. However, in January of last year, we are already getting ready to start a data and technology assessment conducted by a third-party consulting firm in preparation to start building our data warehouse. I'll talk more about that in a minute, but first, let me show you the first of the Tableau dashboards that I selected to share with you today. We currently serve 2 types of surveys to our members here at United, CSAT and NPS. The CSAT, or customer satisfaction surveys, come after a transaction in one of 5 channels. This dashboard gives an overview of how the organization is doing, both in the short term as well as in comparison to our yearly goal. You notice today that all our dashboards have a similar look and feel. This is because we decided on a standard layout before we started developing any content in Tableau. We've adopted the branding standards set by marketing to stay consistent with what we'll be showing to our members. There are 2 specific items that I personally like about this dashboard. If you're looking at branches, for example, you can view numbers by region or by a specific branch with all other items updating accordingly as you interact with the dashboard. We've integrated the actual comments from the members, so anyone can see exactly what's being said about an ATM or a particular branch or our website, for example. Although this is a very popular dashboard, it's actually not finished. We're currently working to incorporate the product of our natural language processing efforts for an even more insightful experience. Now, back to our story. As I've mentioned a few minutes ago, early in 2012, we were in the process of evaluating our data and technology. At that time, we knew we were going to build a data warehouse, but there were still many unanswered questions. To me, it was important to hear from SLT about their commitment to data and analytics. Now, if you'd ask me how to convince SLT to invest in data and analytics, I would have to say that at my current role, all I can do is just try to influence. In my experience, demonstrating value is the most effective way to make progress. Bottom line is important, but there are other aspects that need to be considered. What are the things you can't do today because you don't have the data, or because it's too difficult to integrate data from 2 or more systems? Obviously, topics like fraud prevention and data privacy are also high visibility to SLT. So thinking about some of those things might be helpful. When thinking about a data and analytics journey, I find it helpful to make it clear the reasons why this is being done. So the questions you're seeing here are good for reflection, and they should help to guarantee that your program is truly intentional and not just a hype. A SWOT analysis could also be a great starting point, but in my opinion, only if you keep it fresh. Now, during that meeting with SLT, when I posed some of the previous questions you just saw, I also presented what I believe is a reliable model to build a successful analytics program. To me, the trio data, people, technology isn't enough, and I don't like to put too much emphasis in technology. So here are the items that I think are important. First, you have commitment, and commitment is on the top of this list because it comes from the top. Your executive team needs to be on board to this journey. Obviously, you can't do anything without data. So your data needs to be in order, and if it's not, that's where you should start. In my opinion, it's important to have purpose, and the purpose shouldn't be because my competitors are doing it, because other banks are doing, or something like that. You need to understand what exactly is the focus of your organization and how you can support that with data and analytics. People is extremely important. You have to have a strong team to help you through this journey. And then you come to the adoption piece, which is after the point where you start building your data products, you need the organization to adopt those processes, those data products into the existing business processes. At some point, hopefully you're gonna get to a point where the organization doesn't know how to do what they do without data, without those data products that you've built. And that's what I call fluency. So you might not have had the opportunity to start with a well-defined plan, since sometimes opportunities and requests come up faster than we anticipate. However, sooner rather than later, having a well-thought data strategy will keep things on the right track. Why do we need a data strategy? Well, just to ensure that the data will be managed and used as an asset and not simply as a byproduct of the application. To me, there are four stages of, data strategy. On the first one, we actually don't have a real data strategy. You have some static reports, ad hoc cyclical data requests. This is where we were at before we started building our data warehouse. After that, what we see is a list of projects. This is when we start making a move towards becoming more data-driven. However, we still don't see a data strategy, but a list of data and analytics projects and the associated budget. It's only on the third stage that we will have a data strategy. That data strategy will support the organization's strategic goals, but success in this case means data and analytics success. This is the stage I believe we are in today. Now, to get to the next stage, I think it's necessary a major shift in the organization's perceived role of data. Because it's not until this fourth stage that the organization's strategy is heavily focused on what data can do or what new capabilities or products can be created from data, or how much revenue is expected from new analytics capabilities. In my opinion, getting here demands a deep data culture, which for some organizations, it might take some time to get there, if they ever do. Now, some people talk about two types of data strategy, offensive versus defensive. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. You need to think about both. Gartner mapped 13 types of data strategy that you can see here, the last one being do nothing, which, you know, it can be considered in some cases. Now, to point out what I was saying before, I highlighted two of these strategies. On the left-hand side, you have data and analytics as a service, where the focus is collect as much data from your members to improve and to increase cross-selling, upselling, and so on. And then on the right-hand side, number 9, is data and analytics products, where we're trying to use more data and analytics to drive new businesses, making data an actual product. So you can see with these two examples, the different types of strategies that you can think for your organization. In our case, for us, it was clear that our data strategy needed to be deeply focused on the member. I know this is the essence of most credit unions, right? People helping people. But as we saw in the previous slide, even with a member-centric culture, defining your data strategy around the customer might take different approaches. Whatever you decide to do, make it explicit so everybody has clarity on the direction they're rowing. For us, we want to acquire and retain members, improve efficiencies in the back office, and strengthen security. Again, the idea here is to be intentional about what you're trying to achieve and show how what you do fits in the big picture. Now, before I jump in some of the architectural aspects of our data, let me show you another one of our dashboards. In an effort to learn more about our members and to start moving towards more personalized solutions, we built a segmentation model. The original model is heavily focused on transactional data, showing how our members are banking with us. We're currently in the process of evolving that model by integrating some third-party data. This dashboard is interesting because it gives good visibility to what each one of the existing segments looks like. We see geographical distribution. We have the ability to easily compare 2 or more segments, which is being shown in this screenshot, and explore different aspects of the membership like demographics, financials, behavioral, etc. Originally, it was created a persona for each segment, but with the new third-party data, I believe we're just going to be reviewed. Okay, so One of the most critical decisions we had to make was regarding the data warehouse. And this is one of the moments where I tried to influence the final decision the best that I could. There were some discussions regarding off-the-shelf solutions and the benefits of something like that. However, if we wanted to innovate, provide personalized solutions and frictionless experiences to our members, the cloud was the way to go. But more importantly, what ended up playing a role in this decision was the fact that we are a miser shop, and no off-the-shelf solution out there talks to miser. Connector would have to be built, and this would cost us time and money. Additionally, at that time, there were early conversations about a possible core conversion, which is now a reality as we're moving to Fiserv DNA. A data warehouse is usually the biggest investment in an organization's data journey. So focusing on getting the most value out of it is key. We all know that data is a resource, right? To obtain value from it, it needs to be processed. That's why we're allowing analytics to follow the data. More than building a data warehouse, we wanted to create an analytics-ready data hub, an environment that could support data literacy and data democratization, that works well with some of the best analytics tools out there, that we work seamlessly with a new core to provide near real-time data, that allows us to improve some of our old processes. All of this with reliable instruments to keep our data secure and compliant. With our cloud-based data warehouse, we have security, flexibility to scale up and down as needed, and we have an environment that allows us to innovate. Now, this is a high-level view of our current architecture. We are using Matillion as our ELT tool, and we've built a data lake and data warehouse using Snowflake. The decision to go with Snowflake after we've decided that we need to build this thing from scratch was influenced by the fact that we are a Microsoft shop. That eliminated some other interesting options such as Redshift, for example. But we are originally attracted by the modern architecture, pricing structure, flexibility, scalability of Snowflake. When the consultant's recommendation was to go with Snowflake, we were pretty happy. Tableau came to the picture before this all started and officially became our analytics tool when we adopted Snowflake. We also use R for most of our machine learning projects, but currently we are exploring some of the options from the Azure ecosystem. Now, one of the critical elements in all of this was the adding of Agile to our processes. The consultants didn't use Agile, but we adopted it as soon as we took over the development of the EDW. And later, we expanded that to the front-end team as well. One of the things that surprised me was how quickly the back-end team learned their velocity, which is basically the effort estimates, projects, and tasks. With that in place, we got the front-end team to build the backlog based on the projects they're working on, mostly a self-service analytics program and the legacy reports migration project. For the legacy reports migration project, we're moving all our SSRS reports into Tableau for efficiency and a better experience for the end user. In average, we're being able to combine 5 to 6 reports into one Tableau dashboard. Sometimes this number goes all the way up to 15 reports. For reference, we have a little more than 1,000 reports today, with 25% of them just not being used actively. With the reports now in Tableau, we're building a new portal and using Tableau functionality to help end users find the content they're looking for. Additionally, there's the self-service analytics program that I'll talk about in a minute. But before, let me show you another one of our dashboards. For 2020, one of our goals is attached to operational efficiency. With the entire company paying more attention to their operational budgets, we decided to make people's lives easier and build an OPEX tracking tool. The idea to build this came from a discussion with our CFO, who shared his vision to what a tool like this should look like. I brought his ideas back to the team, and we designed this dashboard in two flavors, one for finance and SLT, and one for budgeters. This one is the leadership version. It displays information for each SLT member with variance to budget in comparison to previous year. We added two elements that help to make this tool popular. On the center below, there's information for budgets controlled by direct reports of SLT members. And to the right, you can see numbers for specific GLs with the ability to drill down to line items level. Although we are very happy with the final outcome, I have to say that this was probably the most complex dashboard we've built so far, especially because finance wanted the two versions to show data in different formats, top-down and bottom-up. For a couple of months, finance was playing with this dashboard and making sure that the data was matching what they were seeing before. And then it was finally released to the general public. Now, you might remember I've mentioned earlier that our operational model was very centralized. This caused inefficiencies as some folks around the organization that use data extensively sometimes didn't have easy access to what they needed to do their jobs. With the building out of the EDW, we proposed to change that operational model to expand access to data and analytics. You might not know this about me, but I am actually 6'4". So often when I go to the grocery store, I'll have someone asking me to grab something from the top shelf, which I'm glad to do. But whatever that product is, I didn't add any value to it. I just happened to have easy access to it. The same thing happens when your data is tightly centralized. I had some of my best people responding to inquiries such as, can we have a list of all the members with checking accounts between 20 and 30 years old, or some variance of that? I'm sure you've heard this yourself before. To me, this is what I call top shelf work. Necessary? Of course. The same way that can of soup or box of cereal was reaching out for at the grocery store, right? But this type of work is not good for the requester, who needs to get in line and wait to have what they need, nor is good for the analyst fulfilling the request, because he or she is certainly capable of doing so much more than that. So we are trying to address this type of situation and others with a self-service analytics program. The idea is to invest in data literacy to enable what we call power users to have the right tools and the right data at their fingertips whenever they need. We're also building workbenches, which are tools that allow the end user to get simple questions answered without the need to get in line. But for this to work, we need to get our house in order. It's one thing when we're the only ones working and accessing the data. If we're going to allow other people to do the same, we need to make sure that the data is being well managed and that it's clearly documented. This is being achieved with a data governance program. Now, for some people, the term data governance, or maybe just governance in general, might trigger some discomfort. For us, along with supporting the self-service analytics program, we're investing time in building a data governance program for compliance purposes, quality and consistency of data, and because we want to truly treat data as a strategic asset. If you have tried to do data governance before and faced resistance, here are some things to consider. What most organizations don't realize is that they are already managing their data. They just don't do this systematically. What a formal data governance can do for you, in this case, is to formalize and improve existing processes, as well as define ways to enforce some rules and norms. It's important to remember that data governance is not a project. This is not something that has an end date where something is delivered, results are measured, and you can call it done and celebrate. Instead, data governance is a program. Since after the initial stage of establishing the program, there will be an ongoing process of continuously managing the data. You can always start small and expand later. Most of the money in the data governance program are spent in tools and maybe external consultancy. You can start without any of these things. People might react defensively when you start talking about rules, roles, and responsibilities. Get buy-in by showing what's in for them. If they understand you're going to solve a problem for them, they're more likely to collaborate. And like most of what I've talked so far, here too, executive support is crucial. Our data governance program is still in its earlier stages, but here's how we are approaching it. We picked an existing model to assess where we're at. There are at least a few well-known ones, like the one built by IBM. There's one from Gartner and one from the University of Stanford, to name a few. Take a look at the data management body of knowledge from DAM International for more information. Define what's your ideal state and perform a gap analysis. Like the analytics maturity model, you don't necessarily need to shoot for the highest level of maturity. Find what's right for your organization. After that, you can design your program, making sure to specify what people can expect from this initiative. Once all of this is done, you can think about building your committee, assigning roles and responsibilities, schedule ongoing meetings, and etc. Now, for the self-service analytics program, we're indirectly following the Tableau blueprint. I say indirectly because we're not using it as a guide, but maybe more as a reference. In one form or another, we're working on most of the items that you've seen here. In the agility category, we had our deployment and we trained someone who was previously an excellent Tableau developer to also manage the platform. Our monitoring process can be improved, but we're keeping an eye on performance, which also includes individual dashboards performance, user management, as well as auditing, which includes access and usage. The proficiency layer is the one we've been dedicating a lot of time lately with the self-service analytics program. For the education piece, we've decided to not reinvent the wheel and just use the excellent e-learning program from Tableau. So we've created a first cohort with only 5 participants and guided them through the e-learning program with regular checkpoints to reinforce the content learned with our own data. In the meantime, the data management team curated the data that they will be using once they're done with training. We are wrapping up this first group with a final project, which is basically each participant building a dashboard that represents an aspect of their daily work. Because this took a couple of months to complete, we're showing off by bringing it all together in a showcase involving participants, their managers, and who else would like to see it. The hope is that this would generate some curiosity and excite more people to participate. And finally, we want to stay in touch with our power users. So we are creating an analytics center of excellence to keep people engaged, exchange experiences, and keep everybody learning. From end to end, this is what our self-service analytics program looks like so far. We start with 5 participants from 3 departments. I wanted to highlight that it's very important to pick your initial cohort very carefully, because you wanted to make sure that you can get the majority of them to cross the finish line and show this to their peers. We used e-learning from Tableau. We have expert support from our team working with those participants on a regular basis. We are curating the data on the back end, so these participants will have the data they need moving forward. We're building a center of excellence. In our second cohort, that it's going to start in September, we already have 15 candidates. Now, let me show you one of the workbenches we've put together. This member workbench helps anyone who wants to understand our membership. We've changed the layout a bit to bring filters from the left side to the top, since we don't have one single KPI to display. We've added filters for types of members, types of accounts, products, services, and location. You can find any combination of these items to come up with a specific group of members to answer your question. We're adding the Salesforce ID to this data, so marketing can have a list directly out of this tool. However, as we will see in the next slides, cross-selling is not something we can do from here, as it wouldn't allow for efficient tracking. So for communications about a product or a service, as well as for just understanding who our members are, this is proving to be a great tool. Now, the final act of this story is the utilization of data in advanced analytics and AI. This is our contribution to positively and directly affecting the members with ways that will improve the member experience and hopefully strengthen the relationships with the credit union. You might remember when we were talking about data strategy, I've mentioned the importance of linking your strategy to the organization's value proposition and strategic initiatives. Our value proposition here at United starts with, we know our members, which I feel is the premise we are actively helping to satisfy. Here are some examples. So we are building a cross-sell engine. Today, we have different people in different departments reaching out to us and asking for a list for a credit card campaign, or a branch manager, for example, who wants to call some of their members to offer a credit card as well. So we are not doing this in a very synchronized way. So we wanted to build a cross-sell engine that first will tell us who exactly we should be reaching out to offer the product. And secondly, we wanted to centralize this into our CRM and integrate this with all different channels. Hopefully, when we have our new core system in place, we will be able to do this in a more real-time fashion. So if a member comes to the branch, let's say in the morning, and the teller offers that member an auto loan, and I say, no, thank you, I'm not interested. When he logs into the mobile banking that afternoon, let's say, that offer is not going to show again. We also have a few projects we're currently working on related to natural language processing. I showed you guys the CSAT and the NPS, or actually just the CSAT dashboard earlier today. What we're doing here is extracting the content, the topics, and the sentiment from the comments coming from those surveys. And we wanted to integrate that information into those two dashboards. We're also working with the contact center to understand the context, that members are calling us. So why they're calling, are they happy with the outcome, agent performance, and etc. If we wanted to know our members, we need to build a 360-degree view of our members. And we are doing this today in our data warehouse. The last one here is the profitability and lifetime value models that we are building. We already have the first version of the profitability model that basically understands what is the profitability we can have for each one of our products, and then we can just aggregate this at the member level. So these are just a few examples of the things that we are doing today. There are certainly more, but I thought these would be good ones to share with you today. So where does all of this put us? We've made significant improvement in our analytics maturity in a little more than 12 months. Although advancing this maturity model is important, I think it's only relevant if we can put this thing in perspective. So what are we doing with this? Well, revenue. The example I can bring you, it was a HELOC model that we put together for a marketing campaign a few months ago, where we were able to get 87% lift compared to previous campaigns in the response rate, and more than 260% in attributable dollars. I show you guys several examples of our dashboards, and we're clearly getting more insights from our data. Not only that, but we're making possible to democratize our data. We're helping to fulfill our organization's value proposition. We're moving towards getting to near real-time data. All the work that was done in our data warehouse today is going to be extremely helpful when it comes to core conversion, which is starting in a couple weeks. And finally, the data governance program that I've mentioned to you as well. But as I've said in the beginning, this is an ongoing journey. You solve some problems, and this just qualifies you to deal with the next ones in an everlasting way. Today, we're still working on our data, which will be an ongoing piece of this process, especially now that we have a core conversion process starting. I certainly could get a few more FTEs, but this is not an actual deficiency. However, we are getting to the point where people in different areas of the credit union start feeling like we are trying to move their cheese. My way of dealing with this type of resistance is just to keep working in our partnerships, earn their trust, and move on when they are ready or when their leaders are, whatever comes first. Now, here is our final dashboard. With mortgages being such a hot topic this year, I wanted to show you one of our best dashboards. It's part of a group of 4 dashboards we delivered to the mortgage team earlier this year. This one tracks MA's performance, plotting them all in a scatter plot format based on 2 variables chosen by the user and colored by their regions. On the right side, we have a ranking system that shows performances for the last 3 months for each individual MA. I think this is a great tool for sales teams due to their competitive nature. Anyway, I hope you have found this useful, and I want to thank you.
Thank you so much, Eduardo. That was wonderful. And we do have a bunch of questions that have come in. First off, just because it was the closest to what came up a moment ago, there were a couple of questions about the profitability model you guys are working on. The first one was whether or not, this is from Christina, whether you built it, the profitability piece or interface with a CAN solution or from scratch.
We built that from scratch. So we actually worked with the finance team, and they worked on the loan products, and then my team worked on the deposits products. But we basically just analyzed the data and trying to come up with a number for the profitability at the product level. We are going to improve that model. A second version is coming up now during the second semester. But this is the first profitability model that we have at the member level. So I have to say I'm pretty happy with that.
Excellent. This is always a popular question on these calls, and I'm sure we'd like a little more color from you, just to say a little bit about the size of your team, how it's set up, and then how was it 2 years ago when you started versus what it looks like now?
Good question. So 2 years ago when I started, I actually came to the marketing department. And it was a brand new department, a brand new team. And I had the chance to hire the first person, which is the Tableau guy that I have on the team until today. And then before we could start expanding, a new CIO came on board, and then we merged my team with the BI team, which at the time was reporting to finance. So we merged those two teams together, brought this new department, which is called Enterprise Analytics, into IT. And the way that team is structured today is I have a data management piece with 3 individuals. These are the guys that are building the data warehouse, leading the data governance, building the data pipelines for the other 2 consumption teams, and etc. Then I have my analytics team, which is taking care of everything Tableau and reporting, plus some ad hoc requests that we still have from the business. And then I have the data science team, which is my smallest team right now. We only have 1 data scientist on the team today, which is taking care of everything you guys saw in terms of AI, machine learning, and etc.
Wonderful. Here's an interesting question. Anonymous asked whether you could provide the group with a high-level view of, first off, how long the core conversion process is estimated to take end to end, and then how many resources are required. I believe that means from your perspective. I believe you said you're going from Miser to Fiserv DNA?
Correct. So the core conversion is started earlier this year when we were actually just analyzing some vendors and some options, and then we did some due diligence. We visited some credit unions. We wanted to talk to other customers. It was a long process. The actual conversion project started last week. We had the kickoff meeting last week, if I'm not mistaken. And my team is going to start getting involved in this process, I believe, in a few months. We haven't talked to them yet. We haven't talked to Fiserv. They're a large organization. I am eager to hear what this process looks like from their standpoint in terms of data. I foresee that we're going to have my data management team heavily involved in that process.
Excellent. Yeah, we did a webinar, I think, last summer on various analytics perspectives on core conversions. And the big takeaway, unsurprisingly for our group, was that the sooner the better, because there's some nasty surprises that can happen if they wait too long. And I'm right. Sure you're not surprised by that. Ian had asked if you could provide just a little more insight on the sort of sub makeup team. So for example, I think a lot of people on this call will probably fit into any of your 3 sub teams, but a little bit of color on the makeup of the analytics team and both how they serve different business units and their background skill sets.
Yeah, sure. So for the analytics team, I have today 2 people dedicated to working in Tableau, and I have 1 person that is being with the organization for several years that is still working exclusively with the business. So think about other ad hoc reports or requests that the business might need, some updates into systems and things of that nature. So this is what my analytics team looks like. The 2 Tableau folks, one of them, as I said, it was my first hire, and he actually came from the healthcare. I actually have 3 people in my team that came from healthcare. This guy and then 2 data engineers. On the data management team, I have 3 people today. Senior data engineer, a data engineer who is working. So the senior data engineer and the second person, they're mostly working on all the data modeling, source to target, and things of that nature when it comes to building out the data warehouse. And then the third person, he's mostly an ELT developer, who is also supporting the analytics and the data science team when it comes to building data pipelines for them. And then the last one is the data science. As I said, there's only one person there today. I think the idea was to expand that team a little bit this year, but you know, with everything going on, we have to put pause on that. But hopefully next year, we're going to be able to start expanding the team a little bit more.
Excellent. I think we've probably got time for one more question. And this had come in. If you had to give some advice, United is in a wonderful position of being, I think we could all say, pretty big for a credit union. And we do have a lot of people from credit unions of all sizes on this call. If you had to give, you know, one or two pieces of advice on both how to start, but just some advice on making sure that they can really make their journey as effective as possible, even in a lower asset grouping, what would it be?
I don't have any magic answer to that. Some of the things that I have to say here are things that, you know, people with more experience than myself have said before. Start small. Start small, show value, and get momentum. I think this is important. You will find, I think this is, it's really common for our industry to face some resistance when you start to making changes on the way things are done before. So it's important to have a little bit of patience, right? But again, if you get buy-in from the people you're working with by showing value, to me, my experience, this is the easiest way to make progress, right? So look at some of the things that you can solve easily and try to go from there. The other thing that I said earlier today is, and I know this is a little, you know, unfair for me to say, but to not focus too much in the technology piece. You can probably start with what you have, or even with some open source tools, and again, show the value and you know, show, look, if I have Tableau, for example, I can do you much more. That's exactly actually what I did when I started. I downloaded a trial of Tableau, I built a dashboard, and I showed that to my boss, and she said, well, this is great, we need this thing. So I would say, again, try to start small and always focus on value.
Excellent. Well, I think we are at the top of the hour, and I do want to be cognizant of people's time. Eduardo, thank you so much. This has been incredibly valuable. And thank you for everybody for attending. We will be in touch with both the recording deck, sorry, the recording and the slide deck, as well as information on upcoming events. Do take a look out. There are options if you'd like to be involved in the leadership groups. And otherwise, have a good day. Thank you for attending. Thank you once again to Eduardo and to Alyssa and the support team from Tableau. And have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.